you for attending today's event. So let me brief you through some of the things that we'll be going through here. So first off is that we really appreciate if you turn off your mobile phones, notification, noises, your ringing tone, to set them on silent mode. And we shall begin.
So let us compose ourselves, put our hands together, and recite after me. The blessed one is exalted, perfectly enlightened, full of compassion, who shows the way to liberation. I humbly bow to the Buddha. The Dhamma is well expounded, rare and precious, that leads from darkness to spiritual light. I humbly bow to the Dhamma. The disciples of the Buddha are of good conduct, a well-practiced spiritual community who supports, inspires, and guides. I humbly bow to the Sangha. Honor to him, the blessed one, the worthy one, the supremely enlightened one. Let us recite together. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami. I go to the Buddha as my refuge. I go to the Dhamma as my refuge. I go to the Sangha as my refuge. Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. For the second time, I go to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha as my refuge. Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. For the third time, I go to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha as my refuge.
The Wesak day is, we have a talk by Uncle Vijaya later on. And then for tomorrow we will be starting our event from 9 to 2. Our speaker. So today, we have the honor to invite Uncle Vijaya back here to give some, allow me to give you an introduction of Uncle Vijaya. So Uncle Vijaya is lecturing Dharma and Theatre, Public Speaking and World Religion at Taylor's University American Degree Program. He is a prominent figure in the Buddhist circle, giving more than 100 talks in universities, schools, Dharma centers each year over the last 5 decades. Besides being the patron of the Sasana Abhivruddhi Wadhana Society, Kuala Lumpur. He is also the chairman of the Nalanda education team. He has presented Malaysia in numerous Buddhist conventions and conferences, both locally and abroad. He has also given numerous inspiring Dharma talks throughout Malaysia, in Singapore and Australia. Recently, he was recognized for having served the teaching profession for 16 years, beginning in 1957. So let us put our palms together and welcome Uncle Vijaya. As I mentioned, today is more about all of us here to ask Uncle Vijaya to explain to us or any questions that you want to know about Wesak.
Actually, some questions have already been posed, right? Namo Buddhaya. Thank you so much for coming on this very, very auspicious day. Can you hear me? Buddha never used this. Okay. Okay, shall we go for it? Yeah. Questions? Maybe I thought before we even begin the question, maybe some of you are very new. I thought maybe I will, some of you maybe I'll apologize because I probably am telling you something you know already. But for some people it is new. That this year is the year 2567 of the Buddhist era. 2567. How is it calculated? The Christians calculated their calendar from the day of the birth of Jesus Christ. Right? The Muslims from the day of the Hijrah, the migration. But we Buddhists start our calendar from the day the Buddha passed away. As long as the Buddha was alive, there was no need for a calendar. There was no Buddhism as such. It's calculated from the day he died, and that makes it the year 2567 of the Buddhist calendar. Did you know that? Okay. All right. So that is what we are celebrating, and at the same time, I'm always mindful of the fact that 100 generations separate us from the Buddha. And for 100 generations, from father to son to mother to daughter, it has been going on and we've been handing down orally. And today, you are here as the 100th generation. You give 25 years for each generation, 2,600 years, so it runs about 100 generations. That's a long, long time. Right? Maybe I would also like to share with you that we think, we don't know, there's no written record, that Wesak was celebrated from very early. Even during the Buddha's time already, the Buddha had told Venerable Ananda how there's a very long sutra called the Mahaparinibbana Sutra. It records very beautifully 3 months of the last 3 months of the Buddha's life, when he decides to travel from a place called Rajagaha to the place where he actually died in the north. It's called the Kusinara. It took him 3 months to walk, and everything that he said, he recorded, and it has come down to us. Okay? And in that particular sutra, the Buddha explains to Reverend Ananda, his disciple, how a Buddha must be cremated. When a Buddha dies, how do you cremate? All the details are given very interestingly. And there also he says, after then the Buddha passes away, and the village people say, okay, he told us how to cremate. Now what do we do with the bones? Okay? Now I'm leading on to Wesak. What do you do? And Reverend Ananda, obviously with the permission of the Buddha, because everything that the Buddha taught, Reverend Ananda knew, and he says that when the Buddha's bones have been collected, we put it into a golden vase. Yeah? We put it into a golden vase and we build a stupa around it. At the crossroads, where four roads meet, you put this golden vase, build, and, now this is the important part, and you venerate the bones with music and song and flags and drums and bells, and that is what makes me believe that as soon as the Buddha passed away, they already celebrated Wesak. They couldn't have celebrated Wesak first, before that, because the Buddha was still alive. Okay? Because they had to wait for that. Why? Because Wesak celebrates three great events, and which is very spiritually important for you as well as for me. This is why when Wesak Day we meet, we reassure ourselves what is our direction, what must we do, and this is what we have to do. We always normally say the Wesak celebrates the birth, enlightenment and death of the Buddha. Birth, enlightenment and death, all wrong. You see? The Buddha was not born. The Bodhisattva was born. He had to wait. He was not a Buddha yet. So he wasn't born. Very important point, because it tells us that we humans are all capable of becoming the Buddha. He was a human just like us. He was born just like us. So the Bodhisattva was born. Then, at the age of 35, a great transformation took place. The great transformation was a psychological transformation. Nothing changed in his body. He didn't suddenly become 20 feet tall. He didn't have Las Vegas lights going around his head. None of that. He was just another very good-looking Indian, 35-year-old man. But inside, that is the greatest of the events. He was born as a Bodhisattva, he becomes enlightened, and he becomes the Samma Sambuddha. I said just now that we all can become Buddhas, but there's a difference. There are three types of Buddha. Savaka Buddha, Pacceka Buddha, Samma Sambuddha. Savaka Buddha, all of us can be. It's Buddha, it's the same level of Buddhahood. But the difference is we hear the Dhamma. We hear what the Buddha discovered. Before him, nobody knew this. But the Buddha discovered it by himself, became the Buddha, and he taught us. When we listen to what the Buddha taught us, we also become Arahant. Arahant is a kind of Buddha. It's a Buddha, not a kind of, it's a Buddha. But one who needs somebody to teach us. So we are Savaka Buddhists. Then there is another class of Buddhists. The Dhamma is already here now, 26 centuries, we've got the Dhamma. So we can avail ourselves, we're very fortunate. But there are periods in history when the Dhamma is forgotten. Please be warned, the Dhamma will be forgotten. We won't be able to access the Dhamma until another individual comes, just like Siddhartha, with his own effort, with immense suffering, learns the Dhamma by himself. But having become a Buddha, an enlightened being, he doesn't train himself to teach. He's called a silent Buddha, Pacceka Buddha. He is a Buddha, but he cannot teach. He doesn't have the skill. Not everybody you know has a skill to teach. And then we have a Samma Sambuddha. Samma Sambuddha had no teacher. He had to discover by himself what all this is about. For example, no soul, yeah, no being. What are all these things? Nobody knew before that, nobody knew after that. Only the Buddha. So he discovered it, but he not only discovered it, he had the skill to teach. So for 45 years, he taught us the Dhamma so that we don't, remember the last 3 months, he made sure we don't misunderstand. He repeated and repeated and repeated. So anybody cannot say this is what the Buddha said or whatever. Okay? So he did that for 45 years, he taught it. Then when he became a Buddha at the age of 35, he had a body that we could relate to. But at the age of 80, when he passed away, the body disintegrates. Now when we disintegrate, because we still have attachment and we believe in ourselves, we get reborn. Now in the case of an Arahant or a Pacceka Buddha or a Samma Sambuddha, they disappear and we cannot say they go into nothingness. They go into no-thingness. Get that? Nice thing to confuse you on Wesak. Okay, but that's basically what it is. Okay, so we celebrate the birth of the Bodhisattva, the enlightenment of Siddhartha to become the Buddha, and the final passing away. After that, there is no physical being that we can identify, but his bones remain. And these bones have come down to us. If you go to Brickfields, then the relics are there. Where is this? Nalanda, they have the relics. You know, there. And every time what I've said was, so the Buddha gave us permission to celebrate this. So we're lighting these candles, all of this comes down, and what thrills me is that from this to this to this to this, after 100 generations, we are in Satya Alam. You know, sitting together, bored to death, listening to Uncle Vijaya, okay? But waiting for tomorrow when the real thing starts. And then we pass it down to our children. And it goes on. It's a huge privilege to be able to hear this, to be in a place where we can actually listen to Dhamma in such peace and quiet. Right? And that is what Wesak.
May I ask you, Samma Sambuddha, is it the same as the Buddha?
Yes. No. The quality of this Buddha is Samma Sambuddha. To distinguish him from another Buddha who is a Pacceka Buddha. Exactly the same. All 5-star generals. Alright? Exactly the same, but cannot teach. Alright? Our Buddha nearly decided not to teach. He looked around, and after he had gained enlightenment, he said, okay, I've done so much of peace and happiness, I want to share it. Then he said, whom can I share it with? And he said, alamak, not worth that. Okay? Then Brahma, it is said that God came and saw this, and he begged the Buddha, please, there are people in Satya Alam who will understand. Okay? And the Buddha decided. So he nearly did not teach. Okay? Then, after that, of course, many millions of Arahants who have heard, not by themselves, they cannot take the credit for having no teacher, but having got a teacher, they practice the Dhamma and they learn. The same quality of happiness, perfection for all three. Okay? But they are differentiated. Yeah.
A member asks, what is the difference between Amitabha Buddha and Gautama Buddha?
Yeah. What's the difference between Amitabha Buddha and that should take us about 4 hours, I hope. Okay. But very roughly, we have to maybe this is a nice time to have some very understanding of the difference between Mahayana Buddhism and Theravada Buddhism. Okay, and it goes back also to the early years of the Buddha, about 400 years after the Buddha passed away. All right. Even after the Buddha passed away, the group was very close, very closely knit. All right, and they all subscribe to the concept that it is very difficult to become a Buddha. When you read the story of the Buddha and how he suffered over hundreds of millions of years, yeah. Oh, I may as well tell you this now. What do we mean in Buddhism? You must understand this. You must understand what time means in Buddhism. All right. We talk in terms of eons, not the motor car people. No. These are eons, not what is it? Supermarket. An eon is a period of time. A Buddhist 1 eon is 1 followed by 140 zeros. That's 1. To become a Buddha, you have to have 300,000 eons. That is to become a Buddha. All right? And we have been suffering in samsara for much longer than that. So when a Buddha becomes a Buddha, you say, oh, that's what it means. It is not instant coffee. Yeah, it's a huge achievement. All right. Okay. So considering that and looking at the example by the chief disciples of the Buddha, Moggallana, Sariputta, they all became Buddhas. Savaka Buddha, they were quite happy with that. And Savaka Buddha is called an Arahant. And they said, okay, to try and become a Buddha is too difficult. But a Samma Sambuddha is too difficult, so we will. So that became the ideal. And we call that the Arahant ideal. So that is what most people. But while they were doing this, there was another group of Buddha's followers who said, no, the Buddha became a Buddha and he said you can become a Buddha. Why are you just staying down here? Yeah? Masuk Form 5 pun cukup. Boleh jadi PhD tak nak. Why? The Buddha will, that was not the Buddha's intention. He wanted you to become a Samma Sambuddha. Okay? So a movement started to begin. And one day it was happening, this group that said it was difficult said, you think so easy? You go and just read the Buddha's life. His last 6 years when he was, how easy? You want to do? You want to be stupid. Okay? Anyway, this is a Buddha would anyway. But the other group said, yes, you can't do it on your own, but you can get someone to help you. Now in Christianity also, I can't do it on my own, ask Jesus to help me. Yeah, I as a human being, I rely, I put my faith in someone. In the Theravada tradition, we won't call it Theravada for that time, we will call it Hinayana. Hinayana, Hina, small. The small way to become a Buddha is only Arahant. It's small, Hina. Menghina, okay? On the other hand, if you have a right way, you have the strength, you have the courage to become a Samma Sambuddha, that is Maha. So Yana means jalan. Hina Yana jalan kecil. Nak pergi Penang pakai basikal. On the other hand, if you are Maha, you use Air Asia, some other plane. Okay? So that's a Mahayana and okay. So now from personal level, no one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. The Buddhas merely show the way. We are constantly reminded, you have to do it yourself, you have to do it yourself. And we are constantly reminded it's very difficult. Okay? So this other group said, no, you don't need to. You have the Buddha to guide you. The Buddha can help you. Then they said, aha, Mahaparinibbana, the Buddha has gone, there's nothing there. What are you turning to? You cannot. You are left on your own. The Mahayana turned around and said, aha, yes, the Buddha is gone, but there are bodhisattvas. Just like this Buddha spent hundreds of millions of lifetimes helping others. Think Kuan Yin, yeah? Helping others in order to be saved, not for themselves, because if you only save yourself, that's selfish. But if you are truly a Buddhist, then you do it for everybody. Then you become a bodhisattva. What does a bodhisattva do? Kuan Yin says, I will not go to heaven until I save everybody. That is my idea. That's the bodhisattva idea of the Mahayanas. Okay? Now, that we are talking about the difference between, sorry, your question again?
Difference between Amitabha Buddha
Yes.
and Gautama.
Yes. Now, Gautama Buddha we know lived. We even have his relics to prove that. Alright? My glasses. I'm not enlightened yet. We are talking about Amitabha Buddha. Now, the Buddha we know actually lived and everything of history all recorded, all we have. We even have the physical evidence. But Amitabha Buddha lives in Pure Land, but nobody has seen him. There are no records. There is no historical record of anyone in China or Japan or whoever lived like this. What is this Amitabha Buddha? He is a concept. Now, a concept need not be any less than a real human being. Okay? So, but they place him in the scheme. In the Hinayana scheme, there were many bodhisattvas, yeah? many arahants. Yeah? And some of these have decided they will go on and become Buddhas. Did you know, for example, those of you who are familiar, Patachara? It is believed that Patachara will one day become a Buddha. We also believe that Nalagiri, the elephant, will become a Buddha. So while they were like that, there were others. And one of them, give me a minute please, I'll read this because it's so beautiful. In the time of the Buddha, Lokesvara Raja, Samma Sambuddha is one. This is the time of the Buddha Lokesvara Raja, 81st in the succession from Dipankara. Dipankara is the first of the Buddhas before our Buddha. But 85 before that. And remember I told you how long one eon is, so you know when this happened. At that time, there lived a monk named Dharmakara. One day this monk resolved in his presence to become a Buddha and requested Lokesvara Raja to describe to him the qualities of an ideal Buddhist country, Pure Land. what is the quality of this Pure Land? Thereupon, the Buddha Lokeswara Raja spent 1 million years explaining to Dharmakara the excellencies and perfections of Buddha countries. Then when Dharmaraja heard about this, he went into a 1,000,000-year meditation, and he meditated and he visualized a perfect country, a perfect Buddha country, which we call Pure Land. Okay? And having received instruction, he had asked and he then reappeared before his teacher. Yeah, after he became a Buddha, what his Buddha country would like. All right. Then he becomes Amitabha. Do you see that? Dharmaraja meets with our Buddha, and our Buddha explains to him how to create a Buddha land. And through meditation, he creates that Buddha land, and he becomes the Buddha of that Buddha land. Amitabha. That's how Amitabha becomes the Buddha of the. Alright. Now, what is it? Because we have always heard that the Mahayanis say that if you only mention Amitabha's name once, you will be reborn. He will help you to be born in the Buddha land, in the Pure Land. You heard that? Yeah, it says that. Yeah. So now Dharmaraja, who is now Amitabha Buddha, says, when I have attained Buddhahood, if those beings in the 10 quarters, not south, east, west, north, east, 10 quarters, yeah, all round, after they have heard my name, Amitabha, should direct their thoughts towards my country, Pure Land, and should plant their roots of merit. Start doing good. Honor your father and your mother and all of this, yeah? Start doing merit, and should bring them to maturity with their serene thoughts, wish to be born in my country. If they should not accomplish their desire, may I not attain perfect knowledge. Meaning, I don't want to become a Samma Sambuddha until all of you have. If you only mention my name, I will help you. So you see, so what is happening is not do things all by yourself, become a Buddha private effort and so on, but rely on Amitabha, who lives in Pure Land, and he will help you. Now, you can look at it two ways. You can look at it and say, there is a real Amitabha, there is a real Buddha land, or you can say this is all symbolic. Okay? And it need not be there. You don't need to have diamonds and pearls, and I personally don't find diamonds and pearls are beautiful. Rosna can have them. Okay? So, I mean, when you describe Pure Land with all these jewels, give me a tree. You see what I mean? But the concept that if you put your faith in a higher ideal, something bigger than you, and you say that this thing will help me, you're on the right path. You can dismiss it and say this is a myth. You can dismiss it and say, no, this is all, old-time people just dreaming away. Okay? But remember, there's a time when myth is very important. Myths are very important in our lives. Even our Buddha's lives. Maybe you cannot scientifically explain. Okay? I hope I've confused you completely. But it's very deep. It's very big, and it's really not our area. We are Theravadins, all right, and we have one way of looking at it. No need to confuse Bible, but it's nice to study, nice to know, sympathetically. But to say that they are over idealistic.
So Vijaya, but they also follow the Four Noble Truths.
Oh yeah, oh yes, because Amitabha got his lineage from the Buddha. So they were very careful to connect those two. And then in the Lotus Sutra, which is not in this story, but part of the same development in China, by the way, all of this didn't happen in China, it happened in India. It happened in all these developments took place in India and traveled to China. And in China, the Lotus Sutra says it very beautifully that Hinayana Theravada, Mahayana and Vajrayana are one. It's not three different. You see, so in the Mahayana, you can see that here also. You go to Mahayana temple, they're very open, they will accept us at any time. It's the Theravadins who close the door and say, Mahayana don't come. Okay, they've always had that experience. Okay, so this Mahayana, sorry, I forgot the question.
No, do they follow Four Noble Truths?
Do they follow the Four Noble Truths? Right. So, the Lotus Sutra. The Lotus Sutra tells a beautiful little story. A very rich man who had a huge, very old building, house, many rooms, and he had many children. One day, this is from the Lotus Sutra, one day he went on a long journey. When he came back, he found the house was on fire. And the children were all playing happily inside, not realizing the danger of the fire. So he called out to them and said, come out. But they were so busy playing, they refused to listen. But he shouted out to them, the first person who comes out of this house, who runs to me, will get a golden toy, a car made of gold. When the children heard that, some children ran out quickly, all right, and they were saved. The second child was told, I will give us silver. They ran out. And finally, the last group were told, I will give you a copper. So, gold, silver, copper, I will give you if you come out. When they all come out, when they are all saved, he gives them the same gold toy. No gold, no silver. Mahayana, Theravada, these are vehicles to help us to escape the fire of samsara. When we escape and we come out, no matter whether we are Vajrayana, Mahayana or Theravada, it does not matter. Arahantahood is the same. The yana to get that Arahantahood is what is different. So we don't need to go to war. We don't need to fight. Because it's exactly the same thing. So Mahayana in the Lotus Sutra brings it very beautifully together. Reverend Wei Wu, who's from Tanxiang, he said, if you really want to understand Buddhism, you must start with Theravada. Why? Because of the 5 precepts, the basics. All these basics, it explains it very well. Then you move on to Mahayana, because the ideal is higher. Right? And finally, because it is so abstract, Vajrayana. It's the same, but primary school, secondary school, and university.
So, Vijaya, so for those who are still under Theravada, does it mean that we did not graduate?
No, that's what we say. Look, they're all so complicated. We simply say 5 precepts to go. Our lives are so simple. After all, what did the Buddha teach? Wisdom and compassion. Yeah, you want to scratch your nose, scratch like this. Why you want to scratch like that? Leave that you and me now. Whoever is recording this, please cut that. Yes.
Vijaya, just now you mentioned myth is very important.
Ah, yes.
So in what respect is
Mm.
it very important?
There are certain truths which cannot be explained scientifically. Okay? And the further back we go in time, the less we understand the universe. Alright? For 20,000 years ago, if a child asked his mother, where did I come from? How do you explain? Or if a child asks the mother, why is there an eclipse? Why is it so dark today? How do you explain? You don't have the know-how, you don't have the basics. So that's when you fall back on story. The Red Indians, I share a beautiful little Red Indian story with you, which is a myth, which explains where we come from. The Christians have their myth. Their myth of God creating paradise and then creating man and then creating woman and so on. These are myths, these are not real. But terribly, terribly important for us to understand, not to throw away. Okay, the story of the Red Indians, yeah? How did we begin? Long ago, there was a tribe living in America, all right? And winter came. Now, 20,000 years ago, they don't know what causes winter, what causes summer. They were not prepared. Everything died. Everything was covered with ice and people were dying. People were crying. Their leader was called Hiawatha. Hiawatha prayed to God and told God, your people are dying, what do I do? The God said, wait. The God came down and told Hiawatha, fight with me. Fight with me, kill me, bury me in the ground, and I will feed you. So Hiawatha killed the God, buried him. 3 months later, the sun came back. When the sun came back, shoes came out from the ground. And when the shoes came out from the ground, on the side came the jago. That is why if you take a jago, that brown part, that's God's hand. What you eat is God's teeth. Now here's a myth to explain something that cannot be explained in those days. But that does not make those people stupid for us to laugh at. Understand? So that is what I meant by saying that what you cannot explain with science, you explain with poetry. The lovely story about Amitabha does not make it any the less. What does it do? It brings out within our human need, yeah, our human questions, our human needs. How do you fulfill those needs? Yeah? If the Buddha was alive today, he wouldn't have told half the story. His approach would have been very different. And he kept saying, don't ask me things that have nothing to do with the Four Noble Truths. I only teach wisdom and compassion. Don't ask me about theoretical science. I'm not interested. You see? But if he was alive today, he would explain things quite differently. Because we understand so much more. Okay? So explain. So myth is very, very important to understand who we are, what we are. So don't laugh at myths. It's not that they were stupid. They were trying to make sense of nature, of how things happen. I'm emphasizing this because when the Europeans came to India and China, we are primitive and we are not forgetting that they themselves are more primitive. Their stories are even more mythical. But if they come from the realm of myth, if I have time, I'll tell you the story of Izanagi and Izanagi. Ask me questions.
we have time for one last question.
Okay.
Because we are a bit overrun.
Oh, okay, all right.
One more.
Last question.
Okay, when we post this poster out for Wesak, a member asked me, is Chief Reverend going to be here tomorrow?
Which chief? There's so many chiefs, no Indians.
So,
He's in Japan, right?
our chief, it's
Somewhere.
overseas, I'm not sure where. Then, what makes me think that, will it make a difference if chief is here or a junior monk is here? You know, what is the significance of even if you pay respect to a junior monk instead of chief?
That's why we say we respect the Sangha. Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Buddha is gone. Dhamma is within us. Yeah? The Sangha is the only living living connection with the Samma Sambuddha. Yeah, remember the 5 precepts monks he called Ehi Bhikkhu. He called them and then they became bhikkhus. From the Buddha, the Dhamma was handed to the Sangha, and 25 generations, Sangha to Sangha to Sangha, reached us. Now, when we talk about the Sangha, we mean 4. Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, Upasaka, Upasika. The 4. Bhikkhu, of course you know, monk, nun, layman, laywoman. Together we form the Sangha. Together, the Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, they represent the Buddha. They wear the yellow robe. Incidentally, ladies, that's one piece of fashion, the Buddhist monk's robe, that has not changed in 26 centuries. Armani, Gucci, eat your eye out. Okay, but anyway, the question is it make a difference? No, it does not. It's actually in your mind. We do that every day. Every day when we offer dana, we don't offer it. We call it field of merit. We are not offering it to a particular individual. We are going to every member of the Sangha from today right up to the Buddha's time. So the youngest Sangha member wearing the yellow robe is a representative of the Buddha. And we will be very wrong if we thought that another human being who has been given this worldly recognition, yeah, is any worse than a monk. So did I answer your question? Yeah. The question is, no, it does not matter. Story. Sri Lanka. You know, in Sri Lanka, when you want to give dana, yeah, you have to come to the temple and you meet the monks and you say, please, but he was a very, very poor farmer. This poor farmer wanted to give dana. Okay? So he went to the temple and he said, please, I can only afford to give monk. Please send one monk. Now the temple, see how human they are. The temple people, monks said, poor farmer is fool, so not nice one. Now we'll send one bad monk. That monk, nobody likes to call him. They know him, he cheats. He's not a good monk, you know. Send him. So the so-called monk goes to the house. The farmer saw this and he knew that he was being insulted. But when the monk came, he washed the monk's feet, made the monk sit on a chair with white cloth, offered him, gave him everything that is necessary for him. And this guy, people usually know him, though they don't lie on him very well. Monks being treated so well, he put my pangkat lah. So he enjoyed it. And then after that, he went back. Exactly the same thing, the poor man treated the monk with the highest honor until he went to the temple And the farmer came back. Few minutes later, that bad monk realized he forgot something. He wanted to borrow a chanko. So he came back and told the monk, I told the farmer, excuse me farmer, can I borrow your chanko? The farmer got up, took the chanko and said, you want chanko? Nah, take and go to hell with you. What? Just now you came, you treated me like chief monk. Now you treat me like this? How come? When you came, you were a representative of the sun. I wasn't lion you. I lion the Buddha. Now you come borrow chanko, Buddha never borrowed chanko. Does that story explain what my point?
One more question after that. No.
I ask permission there.
Last one.
The question is, very often we are asked, where is the Buddha after the Parinibbana?
Yeah.
So I come across various answers.
Yeah.
It's in the Dharma.
Yeah.
It's in your mind.
Right.
It's in your heart. I think it is your perception. You think where he is, means where he is.
Yeah.
So actually, which is the most appropriate answer?
The question is wrong. When you ask where is the Buddha, you're already giving, you're saying there is something there. You see? Now the best explanation, I recently came up with this explanation, somebody, I read it somewhere. It says that, you know, we always are told, you don't exist, you don't exist, you don't exist. Mana ada don't exist, pinch me and see whether I exist or not. It's so difficult for us to and there is something there, and we have been told there is nothing there. So where is the Buddha? Buddha is not there, but the Buddha is there. What you're telling me is not there. Compare that to a mirage. You are in the desert, and in the desert you look far away and you see a mirage, and you say, there is water. There is water. But, yeah, there is something there. There is a mirage. But it's only a mirage. But you are calling it water. Then you go and say, what is water? H2O, this, then, that. The question is wrong. You are trying to analyze a mirage. But if you are an Arahant or a Buddha, you will know that there is an I there. But it is only a mirage. So, a Buddha, yeah, in our dreamlike state, yeah, we say the Buddha is the awakened one. What did the Buddha awake from? The Buddha awoke from the dream of existence. The mirage is the dream. This is the dream of existence that we are going through. When we wake up from the dream, we find that the mirage is not there. So to ask the question, where is the mirage, is the wrong question. It does not apply. Read the Vajragota. Vajragota asked this question, saying that, where is the Buddha? Who is the Buddha? And the Buddha says, I cannot answer your question because the question doesn't apply. The question does not apply. Learning public speaking many years ago, my public speaking teacher told me, if you do not know the answer to a question, give a complicated one. I hope that. Happy Wesak.
Okay, let us do the sharing of merits.
The Blessed One is exalted, perfectly enlightened, full of compassion, who shows the way to liberation. I humbly bow to the Buddha. The Dhamma is well expounded, rare and precious, that leads from darkness to spiritual light. I humbly bow to the Dhamma. The disciples of the Buddha are of good conduct, a well-practiced spiritual community who supports, inspires, and guides. I humbly bow to the Sangha. Devanaga Mahidika Punyantang Anumoditwa Chiram Rakkantu Lokasasanam Akasatta Jabumata Devanaga Mahidika Punyantang Anumoditwa Chiram Rakkantu Desanam Akasatta Jabumata Devanaga Mahidika Punyantang Anumoditwa Chiram Rakkantu Mamparang. May mighty deities and nagas dwelling in space and on the earth rejoice in these merits of ours and long protect the Buddha's dispensation, the teaching of the Dhamma, and long protect me and others. Idam me nyatinam hotu, sukita hontu nyatayo. Idam me nyatinam hotu, sukita hontu nyatayo. Idam me nyatinam hotu, Sukita hontu nyatayo. May my departed relatives share these merits. May they be happy. Imina punya kammena mame bala samadamo satam samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. By the grace of these merits, may I never follow the foolish, but only the wise, until I attain the bliss of Nibbana. Sa